The best laid schemes of mice and men gang after gley. Kind of like Volvo's plans to become a fully electric brand by 2030. As uncertainty about the future of the automotive segment is growing, car makers are revising their strategies, focusing on what the customers actually want to pay for. In Volvo's case, it's things like plug-in hybrids, like this Volvo XC90 T8. And to help us better understand this decision, Volvo took some car journalists skiing in the Alps. At least here we still get something that resembles winter. Global warming, my friends, is not a joke. This is the second facelift of the second generation XC90, which is about to turn 10 years old this year. The first generation was on sale for 13 years, so this one still has a few years left in it before Volvo decides how to persuade its clients to the fully electric EX90. Under its revised strategy, Volvo wants up to 100% of cars sold by 2030 to be electrified. This means hybrids as well as EVs. The XC90 is currently offered as a 455 horsepower plug-in hybrid or a 250 horsepower mild hybrid. If nothing else, sheer power may steer customers towards the plug-in. The main change, beside the new grille, is the new infotainment system and the new cockpit layout. New refreshed. Anyway, the infotainment system is Android Automotive here, also with the driver's display. I mentioned this because in the EX30 we only get the central display. Other changes include redesigned cup holders and a smartphone cradle with a wireless charger. After several hours driving from the airport to the hotel, I have several observations. Firstly, for a relatively large, by European standards, 7-seater SUV, Volvo's cockpit feels rather tight. And it's not only me, my colleague with whom I shared this test car got the same impression. Secondly, regardless of what I just said about the cockpit being rather tight, the seats are hard but comfortable. Don't expect a TV armchair, but your spine will not complain. If I were to complain about something, it'd be that some of the seat and massage settings are on the central display. Thirdly, beside the seat settings, everything else is relatively easy to use, but then Volvo hasn't updated much since 2015, when the second generation XC90 launched. Storage under the armrest is modest. There are USB-C ports and a 12-volt outlet in there. The glove box, which for some reason you open with a button on the dashboard, is rather large. The door pockets are just sufficient. In the B5 mild hybrid, all-wheel drive is a traditional drive shaft solution. However, the T8 PHEV powers the rear wheels with an electric motor using the transmission tunnel to store the traction battery. In electric mode, the car is rear-wheel drive, and in hybrid mode, it uses all-wheel drive. And don't worry, even if you deplete the main part of the traction battery, there is still a small buffer for all-wheel drive to work in hybrid mode. Now, placing the battery within the transmission tunnel and powering the rear wheels with an electric motor means Volvo can offer the XC90 as a 7-seater also in PHEV form. The BMW X5, which has similar external dimensions to the XC90, can be ordered as a 7-seater only with a regular ICE powertrain because the traction battery in the PHEV occupies much of the space under the boot floor. According to Volvo, the boot in the 7-seater has 302 liters to the window line in 7-seat configuration, 680 liters to the window line in 5-seat configuration, and 1,856 liters to the roof in 2-seat configuration. According to my measurements, these figures are accurate. The boot width is about 112 centimeters by the floor between the wheel arches. The height is around 45 centimeters to the window line, but only 37 centimeters under the cargo cover case. And the length by the floor, behind the third, second, and first row, is 60, 130, and 200 centimeters respectively. Seats in the second row slide about 15 centimeters at the expense of passenger legroom. I like the folding divider, which prevents shopping from rolling deep into the cavernous boot. Unfolding the third row requires you crawling inside. At least the third row should be electrically operated. Access to the third row from the passenger compartment is easy. During the 2015 launch event, Volvo said the third row is comfortable for passengers up to 170 centimeters tall, and that's about right. Third row passengers get some cup holders and air vents. There is no ISOFIX anchor points in the third row though. And the only two ISOFIX anchor points in a 7-seater family Volvo SUV are in the second row. Granted, there is a fold-out booster seat in the middle. I'm 175 centimeters tall, and behind the driver's seat set to my driving position I have around 17 centimeters legroom, or less if I slide the seat forward to give third row passengers some space. I also have around 10 centimeters headroom. The door pockets are tight, there are cup holders in the armrest, the backrest splits 40-20-40, so there is a pass-through to the boot. Like I mentioned earlier, the battery lives where the drive shaft would normally be, so the tunnel is still here. There are air vents, climate control for 2 rear zones, side seats are heated. The doors cover the sills. The traction battery capacity is just under 19 kilowatt-hours, of which just under 15 kilowatt-hours is usable. AC charging at 5 kilowatts from a 2-phase outlet takes 3 hours. Claimed electric range is around 70 kilometers, a bit more around town, a bit less in the combined cycle. While this is less than the BMW or Mercedes SUV plug-ins, they also have much bigger batteries. In the mountains with temperatures just below freezing, real-life range was below 50 kilometers. On the way back to the airport, I turned on battery charging to see how it works. It's possible to recharge the battery to about 80% capacity. Fuel economy is comparable or even better than in the mild hybrid. More about that in a moment. The XC90 can tow up to 2.4 tons regardless of the powertrain. Promised 0 to 100 kilometers per hour time for the PHEV is 5.4 seconds. Which I was unable to verify during the short time I had with the car. The driving experience is largely dictated by the driver aids, and you can feel it especially on mountain roads. Now, let me explain. Yesterday I drove the B5 250 horsepower mild hybrid. Now, even on flat roads, it's not an engine for dynamic driving, it's not an engine for city driving, and it's not really an efficient engine either. It's an engine you choose because you really want an XC90 and you really don't want a PHEV. On motorway with cruise control set to between 110 and 130 kilometers per hour, the car used more than 9 liters per 100 kilometers. Now, in order to minimize emissions, the car is programmed to always use the highest gear possible, which is not ideal in the mountains. And here we get to the Intelligent Speed Assist, or ISA. Volvo is the first car I've driven which offers a choice of sound warnings, which are annoying, or haptic feedback through the accelerator pedal. So, before you exceed the speed limit, the car stops accelerating and you have to press the accelerator much harder to go over the speed limit. So far, so good, unless you're driving up a twisty mountain road, where you need more gas for the gearbox to downshift. And of course, you can use the manual mode, but it's something worth noting. In the PHEV, it's easier to maintain momentum because the electric motor helps you driving up the hill. And one more thing regarding ISA, when using adaptive cruise control, you get audible warnings regardless of selecting the haptic gas pedal feedback, because with cruise control, you're not pressing the accelerator pedal. Other than that, the XC90 is very well soundproofed, visibility is fine, and the suspension is deceivingly comfortable even on the 21-inch rims, so be careful not to cut the tire in a pothole. Prices of the refreshed Volvo XC90 start at €79,890 for the mild hybrid and €87,490 for the PHEV. This test car with options costs €105,249. The refreshed Volvo XC90 has been improved rather than made worse, which unfortunately is no longer an obvious statement with all the new mandatory driver aids. The only problem, in my opinion, is the engine lineup. 250 horsepower may not be enough for a 5-meter long SUV for some buyers, and the plug-in hybrid is an extra cost which may or may not pay off depending on where you live. And how do you like the refreshed Volvo XC90? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.